Evening. Hello to all of you. Welcome to the Connetics Onwards and Upwards weekly web show. We're pleased that you're joining us today. Please take a moment and drop in the comments where you're joining from. Faze, yes, you are the first. So congratulations. My name is Holly Musselwhite. I am the clinical nurse educator for Connetics USA, a company under AMN Healthcare. And today we're going to be talking about taxes in the USA. Not everybody's favorite topic, but it is a really popular request that we receive from our nurses and other healthcare professionals that we work with who are already here in the US, who are getting ready to come to the US, who are considering coming to the US. So this will have some great information. We have two great guests that are going to be sharing information with us today. And so I think it's going to be a really great show. And I hope that you will stay tuned for what we have coming up. I do see Ashinichi is saying good morning and from Memphis. All right. You're not far from me. So I am in Tennessee, if you're talking about Memphis, Tennessee. Rana is watching from Texas. Hi, Rana. Good to know you're joining us again this morning. Ala'a from Saudi Arabia. Rojun from the UK. And Ruxana, good evening from Pakistan. Mohammed's also joining from Pakistan. Barbara from Germany. Hussein from Pakistan. So we got a few countries already represented in our comments. Please continue to post those and we will check back in there occasionally. And we'll also try to get to some of your questions as we get started with the rest of the show. So I want to bring on our guests. So hopefully they're with us already. Good morning. And I think it's morning to both of you. So hi, Kay and Maydell. Thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Holly. Good morning, Madel.
Good morning, Kay. Good morning, Holly. Yes, you see, yes, it's morning.
I'm still sipping on a little bit of coffee, so bear
The
with
same.
me.
I drop off my son and then step on.
Me too.
Cheers. All right. So, ladies, I'd like for you to introduce yourselves and tell us just a little bit about how you came to be in the US and what it is that you're going to be sharing with us today. Kay, we'll start with you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good evening. Good afternoon. My name is Kay. I'm a nurse, operating room nurse by profession. I arrived in the United States around 2006, and I was clueless. Like everybody of you, you just wait for your paycheck. And my experience here is I don't understand what I'm seeing in my pay stub because this is something new. And plus, I'm young that time and really kind of like YOLO. You only live once, so doesn't pay attention. But then I realized that I think there is some disconnect here because I was doing a lot of overtime as a newcomer to the United States, and I don't see that my net home is really getting way ahead because of the taxation. Then I started realizing that taxation is very important to understand if you really want to succeed financially in your life, because it's part of the part of your expenses, and you have to understand what goes around it. So here I am after learning that. I used it in my travel nursing and been travel nursing for the past 17 years in the United States already. So here, and I also have a business as well in the United States after learning all this.
That's awesome. Kay, we're looking forward to hearing more about your experience. And I'm sure you have a wealth of knowledge. And if you've been traveling, you've probably experienced some different states and the state taxes that come along, not just the federal taxes. So we'll move on. Maydell, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm Miss Madel Baroma. I'm from Katy, Texas. We moved from Washington State during the pandemic. So we lived in Washington State for about 10 years and then moved here. My background is I'm a doctor in physical therapy. I am currently a program manager with a big rehab company. And at the same time, but that's my part-time, okay? But my full-time is I'm a licensed financial professional in a big broker firm, and I've been in this industry for about 6 years. So we came to the US 2010. Of course, knew nothing about the country. First time to ride in a plane. Never been to a plane. Only here coming to the US. And I have 3 kids. For some reason, Uncle Sam was favorable to my end because of my 3 kids, and it really helped us a lot, boost a lot of savings because of tax refund. But of course, I'm like you guys. I'm also confused about the taxation system here in the US. I have a lot of mistakes as well in the past because I don't understand my W-2, my W-4, and all these tax forms. That's why I became so passionate teaching this topic, because me myself, I was like, oh my goodness, if I see myself with others experiencing the same, oh, I wish I could help them, right? So for today, we're gonna be talking a lot about taxes, what's IRS, how is the tax system here in the US, and what are basically what nurses are being taxed on, terminologies like federal tax, state tax, tax credit, tax refunds, tax rebates, and all the other stuff. And of course, we will go over the documents when you're starting a job as an employee, and of course, filing taxes. It's the best, the most fun part of it. Thank you, Holly.
Thank you, Maydell. So I think we're going to get started with what you just mentioned, which is what is the IRS?
Yes.
So some people are starting very basic, and they hear this term and they hear the W-2s and W-4s and all that stuff. And we will get to those details. But let's just start with the basics. What is the
Yes.
IRS?
I'm not sure if my slides. Oh,
There
there.
it is.
Okay. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. I guess I have. Okay. Okay. So I shared a different slide, but that's okay. I'll go over this one. So of course, IRS. IRS is a revenue service for the United States, a federal government, and they're responsible for collecting taxes, and it is administered by a certain IRS code, and which is the main body of the federal statutory tax law. For some, they felt like IRS is like a scary government agency, but I tell you, like what Kay had mentioned a while ago, if you knew how these taxes work, IRS could be on our side. And of course, if giving you a little bit overview of the U.S. tax system, give me a second. So I don't know if you have slides on that one. Okay, but okay, the US tax system is set up on both the federal and the state level. And federal tax and state taxes are completely separate, and each has its own authority to charge taxes. The federal government doesn't have the right to interfere with the state taxation, and each state has its own tax system that is separate from the other states. And then, besides that, within the other state, there may be several jurisdictions that also like impose, I would say, charge taxes. And these charge taxes could be either counties or towns that may charge for example, their own school taxes that are in addition to the state tax. Okay. Now, what is a nurse taxed on? Okay. Nurse taxed on to what we call the income tax. Okay. The income tax is one of the most well-known forms of taxation. If any of you earn in the US, earn an income in the US, you will see the deductions on your paycheck. Before, I thought when I first came to the US, I thought like, oh, this is my rate. Wow, I'm doing all my math and everything. And then suddenly, when I got my first paycheck, huh? Shouldn't be the calculation. So I started calling my HR and questioning, and I didn't know about all these deductions. I felt so dumb and stupid for not knowing, but of course, it's my first time, and I was, it's normal to be questioning all these deductions because, of course, in the Philippines, we're not familiar with those kind of deduction. And every person who earns income in the US is supposed to pay income tax on both the federal and state level. Federal taxes includes your Social Security and the FICA, Okay, and each state also has its own form of income tax that employers also withhold from your paycheck. So looking at on the screen is I mentioned about the federal tax, which is a tax that you pay to the national government. Is of course it's your tax based on what you earn, what you buy, things you own, and then now this is one. Even when we die, we're taxed, okay, because of the estate and inheritance taxes. So as you can see in your screen, then those a while ago, those are your individual taxes based on those category. Okay, also on top of that, the federal tax is the money that individuals and businesses pay to the US government based on income and profits. And to be mindful that the individual income tax has 7 tax rates that rise with income. And each rate applies only to income in a specific range, ranging from 10% to 37%. Okay. Now, if you can see as well, if you want, okay, there you go. Oh, thank you for sharing that slide. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is, I'm just showing you briefly. This is the 2023 tax bracket. This is for a single filer. So you can see each bracket falls. It depends on what you make, and that will be the amount that you owe. We're not going to tackle about how to compute this, but at least that's a very basic that you can just Google it. Next slide, please. Same for our married filing jointly. So that's the bracket. Next, please. And then married filing separately. And then, of course, head of household, the last slide. Okay, there you go. Okay, so you can just take a screenshot. You know your status right now. Of course, for single, you're single. Married, it's either you file separately or you file jointly. Now, what to determine and how to determine if I'm gonna file separately or file jointly. So the best person to ask, the best resource person is of course your CPA. But it's a case-to-case basis why couples file separately, and of course, and then majority also, of course, file jointly. But of course, if you have a certain goal, especially when buying a house, sometimes they do the separately, but consult with your CPA on that one. By the way, on this slide, you will see these are the current state tax rates by state. So you can see, okay, for example, if I'm looking at California, so the tax rates range from 1% to 12.3%, and it's based on the lowest and the highest tax bracket. And you can also see states here that doesn't have, or what I mean, does have flat rates. So it doesn't matter how much you make, they have the flat rate. Like Indiana has a flat rate of 3.15%. Illinois has 4.95, and you could also see other states that doesn't have state tax. So I'll start with Alaska, Florida. Next slide, please. Okay, there you go. And Nevada, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington, and Wyoming. So for those of you, you're trying to move to different states, some of them, they have a state tax is a big factor why they're relocating to a new state, okay? So like for us in Washington state, and we were in Washington state, we did not experience state tax. But then why did we move to Texas? Well, of course, there's no state tax, but then weather. Washington is raining, it's cold. And and of course, there's a lot of opportunities for my husband here in Texas. So that's one factor as well. So let's move on to the slide for the tax credit. If you can pull that out for me. So thank you. And what do we mean by tax credit? So tax credit is an amount of money that taxpayers are permitted to subtract dollar per dollar from the income tax that they owe. And tax credits are more favorable than tax deductions because they actually reduce the tax due, not just the amount of taxable income. So examples of tax credits is your family and dependent credits. If you've got kids, which I will discuss a little bit about child tax credit. If you have, like Tesla or those, electric clean vehicle credits, that's what we call that. income and savings credits, homeowner, and healthcare credits. Okay, so okay, I don't know
And
if the slide
Madel,
is,
just a
yeah.
quick question. So on these credits, are these credits always there, or might they change from year to year what you might be eligible for?
Well, it's always IRS always posts announcements anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So we just have to be on top of it, or your CPA will update you anyway. But so far through the years, since I came to the US, I've been getting the family independent credits.
Mm-hmm.
I get the homeowner credits because of, and then of course the healthcare credits. So it is still there, but the one that may change will be the amount of credit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
Yes.
makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Now,
you.
yes, one very okay, like what I said a while ago, I have 3 kids. That's why Uncle Sam was very, very favorable with me.
Mm-hmm.
So my kids came when they were very young. So my youngest was 2, my eldest was 6. So imagine how many years fully that I enjoyed. I
That.
enjoyed the child tax credit. But
Mm-hmm.
now my eldest is 21 and my second is 18 and my youngest is 15. Oh my goodness. You know how that works, right?
Yeah.
So
Eric
yes,
will get the benefit now.
I was joking with my husband. Maybe we need another baby. But anyway.
Well, and you know what? The other thing is, I've been on the other side of that, and my grandmother was my dependent for a while. So when I filed my taxes, my dependent wasn't a child, it was an older adult. And there was some tax benefit to including her in that filing as well.
Yes, that's what we call the dependent credit. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm gonna highlight the child tax credit here. But yes, we have a lot of credits. So child tax credit, as of now, as per IRS, they had it's only it only marked the 2022 child tax credit, which still, if you have young children, they will provide $2,000 for each dependent child as long as they have a social security number younger than 17 at the end of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the 2000 per child amount begins to phase out at incomes of 200,000 for single tax filers and 400,000 for married couples filing jointly. Okay, so it's still like what you mentioned a while ago, Holly. Would this be subject to change? For now, with this one is yes, it's still if you make more than if you make those income and more than that, it's gonna phase out on you. And like what you said a while ago about the dependents, you just list them when you file your taxes, and then of course just put their social security numbers on what we call form 1040, and you have to complete what we call a schedule 8812, which is called the credits for qualifying children and other dependents. So make sure when you file your taxes, of course, your CPA will prepare all those forms anyway, but it's good to know these forms, right? And then, like what if Madel, our dependents are already above 817 and they're still living with us. So if you have children or other dependents who are 17 or older at the end of 2022, you can get 500 credit for each of them. And of course, this should be put on the form schedule 8812 on line 6 to 8. So that would be something good to know. Okay, and then I could go over the next one, which is the tax rebate. So if that slide can be pulled out. So besides the tax credit, there's also what we call tax rebate, right? So in a rebate is a refund of tax when the tax liability is less than the taxes paid by an individual or business. And tax rebates can be issued by federal, state, or local government for various reasons, okay? Such as stimulating the economy, encouraging certain types of purchases, or reducing tax burdens on low income earners. Examples of these are the recovery rebate credit. When we had the economy downturn 2008 because of the housing bubble and during the pandemic. So that's an example of a recovery rebate credit. You also have the alternative energy tax rebate. So, like for us, we have our house, we have a solar panel, so that's a credit. And then, of course, if you have a hybrid car like Tesla or Toyota Prius, so that's a tax rebate. Okay.
Medell, take a breath. Woo! You've covered a
No,
lot of great information.
a lot.
And I appreciate that, but we're going to give you a break for just a second. Kay, I actually want to bring you in and ask you, have you experienced any of these rebates or credits that Medell has been sharing with us? And did you figure that out from talking with a tax professional, or did you figure that out from um, doing research? Like, how did you learn about the tax system?
So like, and everyone here in the United States, I mean every nurse in the United States probably, I it came to a point that I said we're the most hardworking people on earth, but how come majority of the nursing professionals are paycheck to paycheck? I was doing a lot of overtime, but I feel like I'm not getting ahead financially. So that's when I realized like there is something wrong, there's something that I'm missing. So that's the time I started learning about finance, and I grabbed a book. It was the most basic book that I have ever read for about finance, called Finance for Dummies, because I really thought I was a dumb. I have to accept it. And the first thing to changing your life is really accepting that you are missing or lacking something in knowledge. So that's the one thing I got, and it really helped me a lot because it went through the personal finance as well as taxation, the basic taxation. And then I realized, wait a minute, I did not even use, those things that Madel has mentioned, those tax credits, those tax, what are the tax advantage, retirement plans, like the ones being offered at my work during that time is the 401k and 403b. Provided that I was also working in a government institution, they also provided, on top of those, are the 457 plan. For federal, it's called TSP. So you get two options on your retirement there. But I still don't understand those things by, when I started. So as soon as I started reading, I started listening to podcasts. I actually really became a sponge and understand that, wait a minute, well, taxation is bad. They said if you do a lot of overtime, you get taxed a lot though. So there's a lot of this myth that's happening and going around the nurses that don't do overtime, it's just gonna go to Uncle Sam. But I'm like looking at it. Well, if you're gonna tell me to receive $100,000 more of my salary, will I say no to that just because of taxes? And I realize it's not really avoiding those topics. It's really you have to understand those topics to, like Madel said, take advantage of it on your end. So I did receive tax credits as well, for my electric vehicle. There's two levels of tax credit actually where I am in Maryland. So you get the federal tax credit and you also get the state tax credit. So it's I think the tax credit for federal is 7,000 something, and the state level was around 4,000 where I am. So just that 11,000, if I didn't know that, I wouldn't even take advantage of it. But
Mhm.
actually, one thing that I've learned about using a tax professional is when the first time I used somebody else who wasn't tax pro, somebody just would he said that he's a tax preparer and all the shebangs. So it was referred to me without really researching that professional, and I actually ended up getting audited. And
Mm.
when that audit happened, that person said, answer it by yourself. I'm like, no, you told me you're going to help me. So I learned my lesson to always, be proactive in understanding what are these things that Madel mentioned, the forms, because if those were filed incorrectly, you're the one who's going to suffer. And you might be paying fees as well. I had to pay like close to 4,000 for that because I don't know and I don't understand. And from
Mhm.
that moment, I said to myself, no one will really act on the best interest of yourself except you. So you better learn it, at least the basics. And when you learn it, you will take advantage of those tax credits. I also have my mom as my dependent. And I also have two kids, which we also use as a, for tax credits for kids. Later on in my life, I went beyond the limit of the income. That's wherein the business comes in because there is a lot of tax deductions and tax breaks for businesses as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes, I want to add to that too with Kay, because through the years that I become a licensed financial professional, so I get in touch with a lot of nurses. So especially new immigrant nurses. At first, they're enjoying, whatever tax refund they have, right? Because they didn't realize when they came to the U.S. They probably came middle of the year and their income is not, is within a lower tax bracket. So they're enjoying their tax refund. And then even though, at times I educate them, hey, you have to be of course, if you really want to maximize that and also be proactive if you're going to be paying taxes or not down the road, especially you'll be exposed to a lot of overtime opportunities because that's the way it is, right? So yes, but because like what Kay had mentioned, knowledge and education is very, very powerful. So you can be proactively plan ahead. It's not really like if the call of duty asks you to do overtime, you don't have a choice. But you also, you don't want to be upset as well while you're paying a lot of taxes. It's just how you're able to manage this by, of course, having it's either you read books or consult to your CPA because your CPA would know more about how to help you. I would also like to suggest a book because Kay had mentioned, because when she started ramping up her income, she started a business, which I did the same. So
Mhm.
there's one great book, Lower Your Taxes by Sandy Botkin. I read that, front to back twice, and I truly appreciate that book. So just yeah. So also last one for the child tax credit, I forgot to
Mhm.
say, for those new immigrants that come to the U.S., you might be wondering, oh, how come IRS did not acknowledge my dependents? They were here, they had Social Security, and all this stuff. You on your first year they have to live with you more than half of the year, at least 7 months, 6 to 7, at least 7 months to be safe, so you could be able to claim them only on the first year, okay? But the following year, you should be okay.
Got it. So, I think the other thing that first of all, thanks for the book suggestion because I'm going to read that one. I have almost from the beginning of my experience paying taxes, I also wanted to hire a professional. I know there are some people who will buy those online programs or even the free ones that are out there, and they ask you a lot of questions to try and prompt you to see where those benefits may be to your filing. But there's people who, they have a little home office and they're doing, like Kay's first experience, they say, I'll do it for you. And you kind of have a sense of relief, but it is good to, if you're going to hire someone, do your research and make sure that they have the right credentials and they are going to be in your corner. What happens though, and I don't know, Kay, if you experience this or not, what happens if you file your taxes and you realize like maybe a year later that there's something that you missed that was big, and can you fix it, or are you stuck and whatever you did, you're now out of that money or out of that potential savings?
But great question, Holly, right? Because I really experienced it as a traveling nurse. I've been everywhere, and I did not realize some state actually impose taxes just by owning a car. So when I
Mhm.
registered in Connecticut, I did not realize that I have to pay taxes like every year, like how houses are. So it's like I think there's only 3 states, if I'm not mistaken, like around 3 states in the US that you will have to pay taxes on the car, like how you do pay taxes on your house, like a property tax is being paid every year. This state said you have to pay taxes on the car, and the taxes is based from the type of car that you own. So if you own a luxury car, your taxes is very high. So we did not realize that for 3 years we're not paying 2 to 3 years we're not paying Connecticut taxes on auto, and the tax that we had there was $800 a year. And after 5 years, we actually got a mail while we're outside Connecticut that, hey, we got your account was sent by the city for collections of taxes that you did not pay, and it incurred interest and it incurred penalty as well. And
Mm.
I'm like, I have no idea about that. But they said, you can settle this now, or you want to do installment payment. So what you will have to do if you miss something, first you're gonna have to ask your tax professional. If the tax professional say, hey, you cannot go around with it, you just have to pay it. You just call the collections or the city who sent you that tax bill, and you can fix it. You can fix and talk to them and settle it. Our account did not go on collections. We did not get any bad credit history. As soon as you get those notice, you have to respond as quick as possible. Don't ignore it, but it's fixable. And don't be scared, because they understand that a lot of people move around and nobody knows this, auto tax as soon as you get there in that new state. And there's not only auto taxes. So in other states, there's also like city tax, county tax that is not being done in other states. So it's your responsibility to sit down with a tax professional when you have plans to moving around. So that's my recommendation.
Yes.
Absolutely. Know what you're getting into. Madel, we have a request from one of the folks watching to please repeat the name of the book and the author that you
Okay.
mentioned.
Lower your taxes. Well, lower your taxes big time. There's a big time because there are a lot of lower your taxes book. Okay.
Mhm.
Lower your taxes big time by Sandy Botkin.
Okay. Thank you
There,
for sharing.
he mainly talks there about, besides your earned income as an employee, you also have to look at a side hustle. If you're having a hard time to lower your taxable income because your income is so big, you do a lot of overtime. So think about a side hustle that could lower your taxable income, because you can really like take advantage of almost your daily expenses as a write-off. They said that, and it's mentioned in the book too. And
Mhm.
can I share a little bit, Holly, about an experience too with what Kay mentioned? I knew a friend that was audited with IRS because she didn't know about the 1099 form. Because all
Mhm.
she knew was the only form to file in tax is W-2. It's her first year in the US. She didn't know. So she received a 1099 from her other job, and for some reason she didn't file it, and then she got a paperwork from IRS, like an audit, and she had to pay IRS back 20,000. She was so devastated. She didn't
Mhm.
know it, right? So she had to work with a CPA, and went into a payment program. But like what I said, those simple forms, don't neglect when they come to your mail around
Mhm.
February, March. Take them all, any tax form with numbers, get them and take them to your tax professional so that they can review it for you.
So, Kay, did you get some credits or rebates last year when you filed for 2021?
Actually, I don't
Or
get
sorry,
tax
2022.
refund. Yeah, 2022. It'll
Mhm.
be funny because I actually have not filed my 2022 taxes.
Okay.
So good thing
Uh-oh.
you're so this week actually I'm preparing, because majority of the business people, we tend to extend our tax filing. So
Mhm.
if we extend beyond April 15, so we have October 15 as our deadline for tax filing. So yeah, my tax professional, my CPA, is actually waiting for me and end of this week by Saturday. So
Uh-huh.
um when I was when I did not know about all of this taxation, I would always be excited for refund. But then when I learned more about business and the advantage of really understanding taxation, I would say I'm not as excited before anymore when I get refund. Majority of the time, I know I would pay. So there are actually calculators that are available online that you can use to estimate how much you're gonna be paying in taxes. So, like for example, I primarily use Smart Asset for my W-2. So those are good example for business. I also, run it by QuickBooks. Those are the apps for business that we use. So it will give me around how much I'm gonna pay by the end of the year. But I save that money throughout the year anyway. So at the end of the year, the tax professional will say, hey, you owe this, and then you're gonna pay it. It was funny one time because I was just trying it myself, using the software of available software online, and I said, oh, I'm gonna pay $40,000, at the end of the year, which is fine because I have not paid that taxes. I know I owe Uncle Sam, and I know I will have to pay him at the end of the year. But then I said, I'm not gonna file this here yet. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give it to a CPA. He was quite expensive, but he was very, very experienced and knowledgeable. He had 30 plus years in the field and doing very great business, accounting. So I give it to him, and then he called me and said, "Kay, you owe $12,000." I'm like, "Wait, what?" I thought I was gonna pay 40,000. He said, "No, no, no, no. You probably missed some things in here, thinking that, hey, I think I can use this software. I'm knowledgeable. Actually, I'm not yet." Okay.
Mhm.
So those are the things that I would say I invested in paying a professional, and in return I actually saved more. So that's when that thing clicked in my head. Well, these professionals are actually investments.
Yes.
So even if I paid $1,000 for him, he saved me more than $20, $20,000, and now we have money for our vacation.
Yes. So it's definitely helpful. Just like, you're not going to go to a nurse to file your taxes most of the time.
Yeah,
You're
no,
going to go
learn
to a
my
tax
lesson.
professional. So, and there are some of us out there. I mean, Madel, you're a healthcare professional, and you have a side hustle or maybe that's your side hustle, but you're blending your healthcare knowledge and your financial expertise, and that's awesome. But yeah, the bulk of us, we know just enough to be dangerous. Um, so I think we've talked a lot about the different credits and refunds and things like that, but just want to recap. So we have taxes that will get automatically taken out of our paychecks. Sometimes they're from the federal government and a state government that may be pulling taxes out. We also may, when we file our taxes, which is on an annual basis, or it should be, we may receive money back, or we may have to send additional money depending on our situation. And we may also have some other taxes besides what's going on with our paycheck and our annual filings. Like when we go to the store and we buy new clothes, there may be taxes on that purchase. And that's at a state level usually, although it may vary county to county. So we have taxes kind of coming out in a lot of different ways, but it does help. I think, Kay, you made the point earlier. If you get here, and Madel, you did too, you get your first paycheck and you're like, wait a minute, where's my money? And those automatic things that are happening are one of the reasons why you always want to be looking at your pay stubs. So don't just, I got a deposit, there's money in the bank, I'm good. Look at what's coming out, know what's coming out. And also, let's move on to talk about the forms that people are going to fill out that may impact what comes out and when. So when nurses start a job, what tax document are they going to be filling out with their employer? They're going to give it to their employer. They're going to fill something out. What do we call that?
So it's called W-4. So
Mhm.
during onboarding, when the HR will call you, they're gonna give you a form either by paper or by digital. So it's called W-4. So majority of the regular employee, you will have W-4 when you fill up at the beginning of your job, and at the end of the year, the employer will give you back W-2. Okay, so again, W-4 at the beginning of your employment. So it's very straightforward. This is actually a revised edition because prior to the tax overhaul by the former president, this is more complicated. But now you guys are lucky. This is easier to fill up. So the top form, you can see there the top four columns where it says step one. This is usually the basic things that you will apply or fill up. And then on the bottom, if you just have like multiple jobs, spouses who works, this is like just for Uncle Sam to kind of to kind of estimate how much is the withholding that's going to happen from your paycheck. And then usually majority of the people who reach out to me, single people, married, and the house stays at home, usually they fill up the step one, and then they go to, if they have kids, step three, dependents, and then signature. So so it's very simple. Like compared as before, there we have to compute stuff, add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, stuff like that. So so this is the most I think the easiest form in the past 18 years that I've been here in the United States. That that this form was so easy to fill up. Because again, the tax overhaul in 2018 made everything easy for the W-2 income earners. But the business people is still different.
And Kay, I heard you say earlier that you're kind of pulling money aside, like for your business, knowing that you're going to have to pay some taxes later on. So we can't assume that everything that got taken out in our paycheck is all we owe. That may depend on, when we go to file annually, do we get some back? Do we have to send more in? So how did you have an idea of what you'd probably have to hold back?
Actually, the software helped me, those online tools. But example, if you are receiving a bonus, which a lot of I would say, not a lot, but some people who would, start their job and you are expected to receive a sign-in bonus, or let's say those relocation bonuses or allowance. So some of those payment towards you might count as an income tax. Okay.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, if you go to Lephora, a lot of people say, oh, if you're receiving 5,000 bonus, you only receive half of that, right? Because after the taxes, what happens really there is Uncle Sam kind of like thinks that you this is your salary for the entire year, which is not really. So now your tax bracket based from that withholding goes up higher.
Mhm.
But then at the end of the year, you're gonna say to Uncle Sam when you file your taxes together with your your tax professional, say, Uncle Sam, I did not really earn $5,000 every paycheck. So now, if you feel like you've overpaid or over withheld on that pay stub, on that specific pay stub, you might expect a refund from that, on that,
Mhm.
right? Just on that. But you're talking, but taxes is annual, so Uncle Sam still has to compute on the annual basis. But that's all those are the most common things that I've observed with other people who's doing a lot of overtime and not withholding a lot. They're, even though they have family, they put their, like, single earner or single person, and then actually they Uncle Sam thought that both her and him, or the spouses, are working, so they are being computed like married. But at the end of the year, you say, Uncle Sam, my husband actually only work, half of the year or quarter of the year. So you expect some refund on those kind of picture.
Mhm. So when you were hired, like, did they ask you to fill this form out right away? Was it kind of scary to fill it out the first time?
Yeah, I'm very scared because I did not know those forms. It's very alien to me. So every single job that I apply for gave me those, gave me those forms, and as all you have to do is, you have questions, you just have to call the HR, and they're HR payroll, so they will be very helpful in guiding you fill up those forms. But it's still your responsibility to learn those things.
Yes, to add that, Kay, as well, because I had few experiences last year for some reason because of the pandemic. So they were surprised at the end of the year that there was actually no withhold tax from them. So what happened was, whenever they fill out a W-4, there's not really like a deadline or something. At times they're missed. So it's so important to get on top of it. When they're missed because you guys are all busy, right? And then at the end of the year, and then you thought you have refund, and then suddenly, how come I don't have withholding? It's blank. There
Yeah.
are situations that it's blank, literally no withholding. So you're gonna like be surprised. Why am I paying tax back? And I even have these kids. I have 3 kids. I have this. Why am I paying tax back? And then we look at the paycheck. There you go. There was nothing withhold from you because the W-4, like I said, there's no like a deadline to fill it out. It's your responsibility to check that if that's filled out or not.
Yeah, Madel, that's a really great point. So if it looks too good to be true, it probably is, and we need to dig a little deeper. So if you're like, "Wow, I didn't have many taxes taken out," that's
Mhm.
not a good thing. When you get to the end of the year, you're going to have a very nasty surprise when you go to file. So What's
Yeah,
the
I want to add something, Holly, with Madel. It is very important to follow what Madel said. Please take a look at your paycheck. I have worked, with 40 agencies in the United States. I have worked in different hospitals, and I'm gonna tell you, nobody was perfect. In every single time that I had an assignment, there will be always one payroll problem. And that's why when you call the payroll, they will say, you have to wait for 1 day, or, you have to schedule, or any questions for payroll related, you press 4, because payroll will always have a problem everywhere you go. Even if you land the best hospital in the United States, there will be always a payroll issue. That's why you have to pay attention to your paycheck. And I always say this to them: it's not that the employer is bad, and sometimes we're all human, and payroll department are human, so they're also prone to some small problem. It's just depend on how big it is. Small problem, big problem. Most of the time, payroll problems can be resolved within 24 to 48 hours. Okay, so don't be panicked. Don't be upset with your employer. Nobody's perfect. So always pay attention to your paycheck.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I'm going to stop with the questions for just a minute, give you two ladies a breather, and we're going to go check out some of the comments. So Namita is watching from Kansas. Hi, Nami. Cynthia from Nigeria. Stephen, it looks like you're saying hello from Delaware, DE. Marilu from Dubai. Alaa is a laboratory scientist. So nice to see we have some diversity of professions here as well. Clement is signing in from India. Antoinette from Saudi. Silto from the UK. Let's see. And Medel from Indiana. Samer from Qatar. Wow, we've got a lot of countries represented here today. Rika's watching from the Philippines. And, let's see. I missed a name there. Kim. Kim wants to know how to apply. Well, Kim, we'll put that link up right now. So you can go to conneticsusa.com/apply. And I think we've also put it in the comments there for you to grab that link. But just in case you wanted to see it on the screen, we have it up for you. Herzan is joining us from Kenya, and Arlene from Jamaica. Arlene, I've seen your name before. Welcome back. Sharoon is signing on from Pakistan. And thank you, Kay, for put a link in there too for the smartasset.com. Thanks for putting that in there. Yeah. And Kathy and Komocho both are very proud of you guys for your expertise. So I'll get back to some of our other countries that are represented here in just a minute. Don't forget, you can ask us questions too. So you can type those questions in the chat. We'll take a look at those. On the form, I just want to recap. What's the difference between head of household, single filings, married filings? What is that? How does that really play out? So if I'm married and somebody says, are you filing married jointly or married separate? What is the difference?
You want me to? Okay, so I'll go.
Yeah,
so single is, of course, single status, right?
Easy.
Okay, and it's very easy. So head of household, like there are some that are single or single, like single without kids and single with kids, but they could be head of household plus they have dependents. Married filing jointly, husband and wife. Plain simple. Married filing separately, they prefer to file separately, and there are reasons why they have to file separately. One main reason is buying a first-time homeowners. They're buying a first-time house, or for some reason. So there are some because of they're technically separated, but they still choose to be married for tax reasons. So there are a lot of reasons why they do that, but basically that's just the definition of those. Plain simple.
So if they're married filing separately, then that means both spouses will file their own income tax return to the government, be that state, federal. They will both have to send in their own paperwork.
Yes, and they will also enjoy separate standard deduction, right? So it's like a single and head of household. But
Got
I want to add to that to make sure, because I have cases like this with most of the educate. For those first time new immigrants, okay, this is always their issue when it comes to filing tax. Because like what Kay said, human errors happen. Social Security as well can make errors, okay? So
it.
sometimes the names and last name doesn't match what is submitted to your employer, to IRS, and Social Security. That's why it's taking a lot of time to get the refund or process their tax. Make sure your Social Security information matches what's submitted to IRS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very important point. And it's why if you're using a tax professional, a lot of times they'll ask you, verify this is the right address. This is the right spelling of your name. This is, and you're like, man, you've asked me that like 10 times. They want to make sure that those details are correct. So, okay. How do you know when to file your taxes?
So it's all over the news. It's all over the bulletin board of your work. You will see that if you're hanging out in the social media, you will see a lot of people. Who do you use for taxes? Who do you see for taxes, right? So then
Mm-hmm.
that's your cue that, hey, it's tax filing season. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are looking or shopping for accountant or tax professional. So but actually, April 15 is the deadline, mostly for tax filing, unless you extend. Like for me, again, I'm extending, so my deadline is October 15. But in general, if you are not, if you are waiting for a refund, if you're expecting to refund, the sooner the better. As soon as you receive your W-4, your employer will prepare that on around January.
Mm-hmm.
Some very quick employers, you will receive that around end of January. Some will receive around mid February. So as soon as you get those forms called W-4 as an employee, call your tax accountant already. You want to submit that way ahead of April 15 because closer to April 15, these tax preparers are very busy.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're expecting a refund, if you feel like you've overpaid your taxes throughout the year, it's best to do it ahead of time, like as soon as you get your W-2. I mean W-4. Ah, sorry. Yeah,
Me
W-2. What am I
too.
doing? I'm getting, my coffee is sticking. Yeah, so W-2, as soon as you receive that, there's like, there are like multiple copies. So you'll just give the entire thing to your tax preparer and you said, I'd like to file my annual taxes. And I said, we'll take care of you and just wait for your refund on your direct deposit account. You may want to do that as soon as possible, as soon as you receive it, because again, if you need that money and you delay that and you want to file close to April 15, your CPA or your accountant or your tax preparer might take longer because everybody is, cramming. We always have that thing as last minute thing. You don't
Yep.
want to wait that. If you really want that money ahead of your time, so you file it ahead of time.
So, Madel, what other than the W-2, what
Mhm.
other documents should someone have with them when they go to file their taxes?
Okay, so if you have 1099, that's one. Not
Mm-hmm.
only 1099 from an employer, but also where you save your money. Could be the bank, stocks. If you realize your gain, what does it mean by realize your gain? You took out the gain. You took the gain out from your stocks. So that's a 1099. But there 1099s also have categories like 1099 INT, which means interest. 1099R is means retirement. So there's a lot of 1099s. Besides that too, you would also get like what we call like from when you have kids that goes to college for this it's another form that you get from the school, so you file that as well. If you have at some tax forms when you make donations to charity, and then of course if you got what we call 1095C, 1095A. So what's the difference of that one? 1095A is a marketplace when you get an insurance outside your employer. Well, again, I'm not saying that you can get insurance outside your employer. There are, again, limitations on that one. 1095C, you get that from your employer. And of course, if you got some capital gains, of course, too much to explain on this session. But when you sell a house, it depends on the time frame. If it's less than 5 years, you get some capital gains, and there are more. like what I said, rule of thumb, any tax forms you get from the mail, bring it. That's all.
Actually, I'll add to that. So the documents when they come in the mail, remember we said the employer one works usually starts arriving sometime in late January into February. And if you don't have it by mid-February, reach out to your employer and be like, I don't have my W-2. But a lot of other documents, including things that come from like your mortgage company, it will say tax document on the outside of the envelope when it's mailed to you. So it kind of helps you red flag. Let me keep this. It may or may not be helpful for me when I'm going to file my federal taxes. So we've kind of talked about what you're using professionals to help and all of that kind of stuff. But and thank you, Kay. You put some more helpful information in there, so we appreciate
Yeah.
that. So the other thing is, let's say that a nurse goes, you know what? I know it sounds good to hire a professional, but I want to do it on my own. Can they?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually recommend those people like with the simplest tax status. You're gonna have to compare it like how in medicine is. When you have simple illness, you don't go to surgeon, right? You
Right.
know, but if you have simple illness, you can probably go with a primary care physician, you know. So it's the same thing with taxation. If your taxation is very simple, you only have one employer, you only have one income, I think, and you're not on the high income level that you need complicated strategy. I think those software tools online like TurboTax, I think those can be helpful, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because you only have single income, you know. But if you have investments that actually that you got some money back, those are complicated. So you might want to consider a tax professional. Again, if you just arrived here, let's say you started today, October 29, and you're gonna have to file your taxes because you work from October to December.
Mm-hmm.
So you only have 3 months that you work, and your tax is not complicated because you only had one job and your spouse is at home, you know, and they might have credits. Those might be simple, but
Mm-hmm.
again, complicated comes. You need more complicated, more expert people to help you out.
Mm-hmm. So the more money you make, the more deductions you have, the more investments, or the more questions. If you just want to be like certain, it does help to have a little more expertise on your side. And yes, it will cost you, but in the long run, like, hey, you might save 20,000 or more dollars.
Yeah.
So that vacation will be plannable. All right. So we're just about out of time here. Madel, what would be one final piece of advice you'd give to folks as they think about what should they be focused on when they think about taxes?
Okay. So I want them to feel comfortable about taxes. Just don't feel bad about it. Because I see it this way, okay? That's why our country, of course, United States have the best schools, the best, okay, military or whatever best in the world, right? That's where our taxes go. Because I can tell with my kids, they have the one of the best schools, right? So, but then of course, we just have to be mindful of if we have financial goals, like for example, we're saving for college, we're saving for retirement and everything. Of course, tax management and education is a are two, important aspects when it comes to aligning ourselves with our financial goals. So besides reading books, always in talk to your tax preparer or your CPA and ask all questions as much as you can. And of course, like this, Connetics is providing all you these resources about learning about taxes. Take advantage of those. So education, education, education. That's it.
Thanks, Madel. Kay, anything to add?
Yes, so when you are choosing actually jobs, you know, a lot of people are not here in the United States and they're actually choosing where to go. So those plays, taxes plays a big factor as well. So for me, like Madel said, we were given 5 options to look, to move to. And then we chose here where we are right now in Maryland. And what's the reason why we chose it here is because of the school system. Like Madel also said that school for her is very important, but for us, we also value the school system because we have kids. So when we pay taxes, actually, I was surprised that where I am right now, is more expensive in income taxes than where we were in Jersey Shore. I thought
Mhm.
Jersey Shore was very expensive, but actually, when I moved here, we got hit by three levels of taxes. And you know what I told to my husband, and we were comparing what the kids would want to go for school, and they really like it here. The school system is great. And I said, it's okay. We'll pay that taxes because we're getting it back anyway because of those taxes pay for those public services like the school system, the school district. The kids come home with their own computer, free from school. So those are the things that actually we value the most. So when I was single, New York City, Manhattan was very expensive with taxes, right?
Mhm.
So it helped me by talking with a professional tax preparer. Then she said, Kay, you might want to consider contributing to your pre-tax retirement because right now you're in the highest you're in the location with high taxation from federal, from state, and from city taxes. So I was
Mhm.
getting hit by three taxes in New York City. So I followed her advice, and I'm very happy because now there are moments in my life that my taxation is not high because I'm moving around, I'm changing jobs, I got pregnant, I have family. So there will be instances in your life that will change. Your taxation will change throughout your stay in the United States. For this year, a lot of people jump into COVID contracts during the 2020. I was one of it. My taxation during that time was very high. So what did I do was contribute to my, use up CPA and strategize our taxes. So again, my piece of advice here is if you don't know what to do yet, I recommend you start reading about it, educate yourself because you shouldn't be scared of taxes because if you know how to use those things for your benefit, it was going to be very, very beneficial.
That's great advice. It kind of parallels what we know in healthcare, which is if you're going to have to make an important healthcare decision, you want to have the information to make the best one for you and for your family. So it is about education. I think that's a great way to close out the show. Thank you both for being here today. And I will just pop up on the screen here our upcoming shows. I know I saw in the chat people asking about retrogression. Guess what? On October 6th, we have immigration Q&A. I want you to be there so you can hear the latest and ask your questions. We will have a focus show, Onwards and Upwards, October 6th. October 13th, we're going to showcase a healthcare facility Connetics works with called Northside in the state of Georgia. And we have already got some nurses there enjoying life in the U.S., specifically with Northside in Georgia. And we look forward to sharing more about that organization on that date. We also have our Connetics College upcoming shows every Monday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We alternate between NCLEX classes and English classes. So tune in if you've got one or both of those that you're working on. And obviously, those are major milestones when it comes to getting your visa filed and progressing through the process. We do have several initiatives out there, so we hope you'll take advantage of our free English scholarship if you're part of the Connetics USA nurses group. We have referral fees available for nurses with NCLEX up through the end of this year. So if you have a friend, refer them. Go to our website, conneticsusa.com/apply. And we have our podcast. We have a nurse aid program for direct hire as well. Thank you today for being on our Onwards and Upwards show. And I hope the rest of your weekend goes well as we get ready to start. I know some of you are already at Friday night. So, all the best, onwards and upwards. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank
Thank you.
you.
Bye bye.